doing?
The barrel of a gun was inches from Maya Lewis's forehead when the world went silent. Traffic froze. The morning heat pulsed on cracked asphalt. A single bead of sweat slid down the officer's hand as he whispered, "Don't move." But she didn't flinch. She just stared straight back. A middle-aged black woman in a Warden blazer kneeling beside a delivery truck with a shattered taillight, her hands still raised for when he'd told her to stop. Moments earlier, she'd only been helping her teenage nephew pick up groceries that had spilled across the road. Now she was on her knees, facing the kind of authority that could erase her with a single pull of a trigger. No one watching could tell how it had escalated so fast. But Maya could. She'd seen the same fear in men like him her whole life, the kind that hides behind badges and paperwork. "Officer," she said quietly, "you're shaking." His jaw tightened. "I said don't move." From the corner of her eye, Maya saw the bus stop crowd frozen, phones out but trembling. Their faces showed something she'd seen before, that mix of outrage and helplessness that follows every headline saying "unarmed again." Maya slowly lowered one hand, enough to point to the groceries scattered around. "That's all we were doing. I can show you the receipt." He stepped forward instead, boot landing on the rolling can of soup that cracked open and painted a red streak between them. Her nephew Andre whispered, "Auntie, please." "Stay back," she ordered without looking at him. The officer's nameplate caught the light. M. Hollis. He looked young, maybe late 20s, with that thin anger of someone who'd never been told no. "You think you can mouth off to me?" he hissed. "Hands up." "They're up," she said. He kicked the broken can aside, red sauce splattering her blouse like blood. That's when Maya's voice changed. She didn't raise it, she sharpened it. "Don't let your fear write the next headline." The words hit him harder than any shove could have. His eyes flickered, 1 second of hesitation, long enough for a horn to blare down the block and snap the spell. Someone shouted, "We're recording this!" Phones rose higher, car doors open. The street itself seemed to wake up. Maya straightened her back. The gun still aimed at her face, but she spoke evenly. "You've already lost, officer, the moment you stopped seeing me as a person." He cursed under his breath. "You people always talk like you're saints." "You people?" Maya said, tilting her head. "That phrase costs lives." He blinked. For a heartbeat, she saw the doubt, the human, behind his rage. Then his radio crackled. "Unit 7, report of disturbance, He reached for it, but the battery light blinked dead. She almost smiled. Andre whispered again, "Auntie, they're all watching." "I know," she said. "Let them." She turned back to the crowd, her voice steady enough to carry over the engines. When someone points a gun at truth, you don't hide, you look them in the eye. The officer's hand shook visibly now. The crowd's murmurs grew into one low hum. Fear turning into fury, bystanders stepping closer, not enough to touch, but enough to be witnesses. Malia could feel it. The moment a story changes direction. Her voice softened. "Officer Hollis, what do you tell your mother about days like this?" He blinked again, caught off guard. "What?" "When she asks what you did at work, do you tell her you pulled a gun on a woman buying milk?" The question hit like thunder. Even the wind seemed to stop. He exhaled, lowering the weapon, an inch. But it was enough. Andre darted forward, grabbing his aunt's arm. The officer froze, eyes wide, realizing every phone on that block had captured his badge, his words, his fear. A siren wailed in the distance, not for Maya, not for him, but for the city itself, the sound of something breaking open. She finally stood slowly with Andre's help. "You can keep your gun up," she said, voice shaking but still strong, "but the truth's already loaded." He didn't answer. He just backed away, hand trembling, face pale. For a long breath, no one moved. Then the crowd erupted. Not in cheers, not yet, but in disbelief. Maya turned to her nephew. "Go get the groceries, baby. We still need to eat." He nodded, tears mixing with sweat.
She looked back at the officer once more, then at the crowd that had silently recorded her survival. "Y'all ever wonder," she said, half to them, half to herself, "how many cameras it takes before somebody finally listens?"
"Freddie," Maya warned, glancing at Andre. He lowered his voice, but not his heat. "You want a twist? Listen, last night, after the clip hit, my cousin says the body cams didn't upload. System error. That sound familiar to anyone?" Lou's face didn't move, but her pen clicked. "You got a cousin who's ready to stop whispering and start testifying?" "You know how it is," Freddie said. "Everyone brave until a mortgage shows up. But folks are tired, Lou. Tired like bones." Maya watched the hallway behind him, the way people do after a scare. Counting shadows, placing footsteps. Her heart tapped at her ribs. The coffee went cold in her hand before she realized. Lou flipped her notebook to a clean page. "All right, here's what I think happens next," she said, voice economical like a surgeon counting instruments. "The department puts out a statement with words like review and protocol. The news cycles through indignation to exhaustion in about a week, unless someone keeps the pulse steady. Meanwhile, a certain officer gets private advice, disappear, keep your mouth shut, and let the city get distracted by something louder." "And you?" Maya asked. "What do you do?" Lou looked at her as if the answer were obvious. "I remind people that ignoring the smoke doesn't put out the fire." She leaned forward, elbows on knees. "But this time, we need more than outrage. We need receipts." Andre lifted his head. "Like what? We got the video." "Video shows a moment," Lou said. "Receipts show a pattern." Freddie exhaled, almost a whistle. "Pattern, huh? I can ask around. Quiet-like." "Do that," Lou said, then turned to Maya. "Question for you, sister. Are you willing to say out loud what you said with your eyes yesterday?" Maya felt the question settle in her chest like a weight she recognized. She had spent years picking her battles like fruit, judging which were ripe and which were poison. The video had made that choice for her. She looked at Andre. He tried to hide a tremor in his jaw. "I'll say my truth, but I'm not setting my boy on fire to keep the city warm." That line, right there, keep it close. The television shifted to a press conference. A podium, a seal, a wall of flags. A polished voice started pouring sand into the air. "We take community concerns seriously. We ask the public to remain calm. We are committed to transparency." The word transparent bounced around the room without touching anything. Freddie snorted. "I've heard sugar taste like that." Lou didn't look away from the screen. "Listen for the thing they're not denying." Her finger traced the air. "They won't say the body cam was off. They'll call it inconclusive. They won't say the gun was drawn without cause. They'll say context is still being gathered. It's a song with a chorus that never resolves." Maya turned the volume down until the voices became ocean. What would make them stop humming? Sunlight. Enough of it to make mold grow shy. Andre's phone buzzed. He glanced and froze. "Auntie, look." He turned the screen. A message from an account with no face and too clean punctuation. "We saw your little performance. Enjoy the attention while it lasts. Remember who keeps the lights on." Maya's skin cold in one clean sweep. Lou stood, already reaching for her bag. "Do not reply," she said. "Send me a screenshot, then send it to 3 places with teeth." "Police?" Andre asked. "Not yet." Lou met Maya's eyes. "You trust me?" "I do." "And trust this. There are some doors you knock on only after you've opened 3 others." A new sound threaded the room, a low vibration like a wasp in a jar. Maya traced it to the window. Down in the corner, a compact van idled. No logos, dark tent, a satellite dish nested flat on its roof like a folded thread. Freddie followed her gaze. "Please tell me that's a news van?" "It is," Lou said, but her tone stayed cheerful. "And maybe something else. Fame draws cameras and company." Before fear could set its hooks, a knock came from the back entrance, the stairwell door only neighbors used. Andre checked the peephole, then cracked it. A familiar face. Pastor Raymond, stocky, mid-50s, tie loosened, eyes soft. He held 2 paper bags. Eyebrow breakfast, and a prayer that can sit in a chair and mind its manners. Maya felt a knot loosen. "Come in, Pastor." He handed the bags to Andre. "Put the eggs in the oven to keep warm. The grits can complain later." Then to Maya, quietly. "Your mother would have said, 'Stand, daughter, but don't forget to breathe while you're doing it.'" Maya swallowed. "I miss it most on days like this." He nodded and saw Lou and lifted his chin in greeting. "Miss Hart? Pastor?" Freddie tipped an invisible hat. "Preacher." The apartment crowded with ordinary things. Buttered toast on paper plates, a radio voice turned to ally, a neighbor with a wrench, a pastor with bags. The room looked like a small army made of kindness and stubbornness. Lou tapped her notebook. "Time's moving. Here's the play. 1, we choose one place to speak today. Not 5, not a dozen. One place we can control. 2, we gather pattern, not just pain, names, dates, small details that rot the excuses. 3, we decide what we're asking for, not just noise, action with a spine. If you leave people with nothing to do but feel, they'll feel for a day and forget by Friday." Maya breathed out slow and deliberate, like a diver equalizing pressure. "I'll do one interview. Your show?" "I don't have a show anymore," Lou said, smile cornered. "But I have friends who remember who taught them how to listen." She pulled a card from her pocket, slid it across the table. "Community station. No bright teeth, just clean mics." Pastor Raymond fixed his tie. "And tonight, the church hall is yours. We'll have coffee, folding chairs, and a microphone that whistles if you get too close. Say the word." Maya's eyes softened. "Say it anyway. People need a room." Andre glanced between them, then lifted his chin. "What do I do?" "You carry the bags," Maya said gently. "And when someone tries to make you a prop, you speak for yourself." He nodded, jaw set. "I can do that." Freddie checked the hallway. "I'll scout the block. If anyone looks like trouble, I'll get names, tags, bad haircuts. I'm good at descriptions." "Be careful," Maya said. "Careful's my middle name." He left with a wink that didn't quite hide the tremor in his hands. Lou stood. "One more thing, Maya. When you speak, don't sell pain as a product. Tell the truth like a bill come due." Maya thought of the gun, the way it trembled, the way his eyes had gone boy young for a breath. She thought of the crowd that grew a spine together. She thought of her mother's hands teaching her how to smooth a bedsheet so tight it could bounce a coin. She pressed her palm to her chest, felt the thud steady. "I know how to tell it." They left by the back stairs to dodge the front porch vultures. The stairwell smelled like bleach and old arguments. Sunlight cut a ladder on the wall through the narrow window. As they stepped into the alley, a pigeon burst upward, scattering dust and silence. At the curb, a compact car waited. Lou drove like someone who had outrun storms. The city slid by in pieces. A barber sweeping hair like snow. A store window with a cardboard sign that read, "Be kind on purpose." A bus stop full of faces glued to their screens, watching a stranger be brave. Maya's phone vibrated again. This time, an unknown number with a different perfume. Less threat, more clone. Maya answered. A rich voice. "Ms. Lewis, Marcus DeLeon, weekday host of Channel 12. We'd love to feature you. Tell your story directly. Prime slot. We'll keep it respectful." Lou kept her eyes on the road but held out her hand. Maya put the call on speaker. "Mr. DeLeon, Lou Hart here. Respect is a fine promise. Control is finer. Are you willing to give us script approval and full context?"
A pause long enough to expose the truth. "We can't offer script approval, but—" "Then we'll pass for now," Lou said, and ended the call. Maya looked at her. That was an audience I could have reached. It was a mouth that could have chewed you up
Lou answered. "Sometimes the smaller room holds more soul." They pulled up at a squat brick building with a mural of a woman holding a microphone like a torch. The sign read Southside Public Radio. Inside, the studio smelled like dust and hope. A producer with laugh lines handed Maya a headset and a glass of water. The on-air light glowed red, steady as a wound. The host leaned forward through the glass. "Say it exactly how you lived it," she said. "Not a drop sweeter." Maya nodded, placed the headphones, and closed her eyes for one breath. When she spoke, her voice filled the room without shouting. "I want to tell you about a morning that started with groceries and turned into a mirror. I want to ask you something too. When fear steps on your throat, do you swallow it to make peace, or do you spit it out and call it by its name? Because yesterday, I chose the second thing. And if that choice makes you remember a day when you were told to keep your head down, tell me. Let me carry one corner of that weight with you." The host's eyes shined. Lou's pen stopped moving. Maya told the story clean. The spill, the gun, the trembling, the question about a mother, the crowd learning how to breathe together. She didn't decorate it. She didn't drag it by the hair. She set it on the table like bread and said grace over it. When the segment ended, the producer ripped off her headphones. "Phone lines just lit up," she said. "People are staying on hold. They don't do that on Tuesdays." Lou's phone buzzed. A single text from a private contact. "Check your email. Pattern attached." Lou opened it, scanned quick, then looked at Maya with something like awe and something like dread. "Sister," she said, "we've got more than yesterday now." "Receipts?" Maya asked. "Dates, names, complaints that went nowhere. Each one wrapped in the same language like plastic." Lou exhaled, slow. "We're not chasing a spark. We're looking at a fuse." Maya felt the ground under her feet. Solid, real. She nodded once, as if sealing a contract with herself. Outside, the day had shifted from gold to white. Heat rose from the street, making the distance waver. A group of teenagers on bikes rolled past, calling her name like a chant that did not need drums. Maya waved, then lowered her hand, palm flat, as if blessing the air. She turned to Lou. "Tonight at the church," she said. "Chairs in rows, a microphone that whistles, folks with stories. We're going to let the city hear itself." "And if they don't like what they hear?" Lou asked. "Then they can change the tune," Maya answered. "But we're done humming pain like background music." They stood a moment on the sidewalk, the kind of stillness that only happens when a plan and a person meet in the same body. A breeze moved, light and honest. Somewhere a bell rang the hour. Maya looked at the sky, plain, blunt blue, and felt something unclench inside her. Not victory, not even safety, just a clean edge to hold. "If you're listening," she said to no one and everyone, "and a piece of this sits heavy on your chest, write me one line about the first time you decided you wouldn't be quiet. I want to see how many ways courage learns our names." The church smelled of coffee, old wood, and new resolve. Folding chairs lined up in uneven rows faced a microphone on a wobbly stand. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, giving everyone a faint halo of exhaustion. Outside, camera flashes burst against the stained glass like lightning no storm had called for. Maya Lewis sat in the front pew, her hands folded, thumbs tracing the edges of a paper she hadn't meant to write. A list of names. People who called, people who confessed, people too scared to show up. Lou Hart stood near the door, checking her watch, her notebook open on a hymnal. She had already written a headline, "When the system speaks in whispers, the streets must shout." Pastor Raymond adjusted the microphone, testing it with a hum that turned into a low chuckle. "Even God needs good sound check," he said, and the crowd of 50, neighbors, reporters, night shift nurses, and teenagers, laughed softly. Andre leaned against the wall, holding his phone like a shield. He'd been filming everything since dawn, a quiet defiance that made his aunt proud and afraid all at once. Lou gave Maya a nod. "You ready?" "No," Maya said, standing anyway. She walked up the aisle, every step echoing in the hollow church. The microphone squeaked once, then stilled. "When I was a girl," she began, "my daddy told me the world don't break you in one day. It chips at you little by little, until one morning you look down and realize there's a hole where your hope used to be." The crowd stilled. Even the hum of the lights seemed to soften. "Yesterday, on that street, a man with a badge tried to chip another piece off me, and for a second I almost let him, because fear is heavy when it's older than you are." Someone murmured, "Amen." "But then I saw all of you. Phones out, hands trembling, people I'd never met holding their breath for a stranger, and I thought maybe this city is tired of watching itself break." She paused, scanning the crowd. Some nodded, some just stared, like they were afraid to blink. "I didn't plan to become a headline," she said, "but I'll be damned if I let the headline be the end of the story." Applause rippled, brief but real. From the corner, Lou lifted her notebook. "Tell them what comes next," she whispered. Maya looked down at the list in her hand. "In the last 24 hours, 7 people called me. A nurse, a bus driver, a school janitor, a rookie cop. All saying the same thing. They saw it happen to them too, just with fewer cameras. Some lost jobs, some lost sleep, some just lost faith." A murmur spread through the church. "Every name on this list is a person who learned the same lesson I did. That silence doesn't keep you safe. It just keeps you small." She folded the paper, slid it into her jacket, and gripped the mic. "We're done being small." The crowd rose like a single exhale. From the back, a voice called out, "What about Officer Hollis? They suspended him yet?" Maya hesitated. "Not yet, but they will." Another voice, "They'll cover it up, same as always." A rumble of agreement filled the room. Lou stepped forward, calm as stone. "That's why we're documenting everything. You want to fight a wall, you start with a crack." As if on cue, the church doors swung open. A young man in plain clothes stood there sweating, looking like he had run all the way. He clutched a folder so tight the edges curled. "Maya Lewis," he said. She turned. "Yes?" He shut the door behind him and looked around the room, breath ragged. "My name's Officer Sean Miller. I shouldn't even be here." The crowd quieted, even Lou's pen froze in midair. He walked up the aisle, every step heavier than the last. "I worked with Hollis. We trained together. After your video went viral, the captain called a meeting, said we're going to fix the narrative." "What do you mean, fix the narrative?" Maya asked. Sean opened the folder. Inside were printed emails, screenshots, internal memos. "They're fabricating a report, claiming you reached for something in your bag, that he thought you had a weapon." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Andre muttered, "Lies." Sean nodded. "They'll call it a misunderstanding. They always do, but it's not just him. There's a unit inside the department, officers who erase, rewrite, and protect their own. They call it Blue Wall Initiative. Officially, it doesn't exist, but I've seen it."
Lou stepped closer. "How do we know this isn't great?" Sean met her eyes. "Because they already tried to buy me off to stay quiet. I couldn't sleep, and when I saw her face on the news," he turned to Maya. "I couldn't be part of it anymore." Maya took a deep breath. "You know they'll come for you." I know, he said, voice breaking. But if I don't speak, I'll never be able to look my daughter in the eye again. Lou took the folder, flipping through pages, her jaw tightening. Dates, signatures, even timestamps. This is gold. Pastor Raymond crossed himself. Or a ticking bomb. Maya looked out at the crowd again. The faces staring back weren't just angry. They were ready. Then we don't hide, she said. We go public before they can bury it. Lou nodded. Tomorrow morning, my old contact at the Ledger still owes me one front page. Sean shook his head. You don't get it. These people aren't scared of newspapers. They have friends in every one of them. Maya smiled faintly. Then we won't give them headlines. We'll give them voices. What do you mean? Lou asked. She turned toward the pews. We live in a world where a lie gets 10,000 shares before truth drinks its coffee. So tomorrow, we flood the city. Every phone, every feed, every street corner, real people, real faces, all saying one thing. We saw it. We won't forget it. Andre raised his camera. You want me to record? No, I want you to lead. He blinked. Me? You know their language better than I do. Hashtags, edits, filters. You grew up where truth has to shout to be heard. Andre nodded slowly, the weight of it settling on his shoulders. Okay. Lou smiled. Look like we're building an army. Pastor Raymond chuckled. Then let's feed it. He gestured toward the back hall. There's fried chicken, sweet tea, and a copy machine that only jams when you pray for it not to. Laughter rippled through the room, small, human, defiant. As people stood, Maya caught Sean's eye. You did the right thing, she said softly. He shook his head. I did the late thing, but maybe it still counts. Outside, thunder rolled, though the forecast had promised clear skies. Lou glanced at the window. Storm's coming. Good, Maya said. Let it. She turned off the microphone, and the crowd's chatter rose into a low hum of unity. For the first time in days, she felt something close to peace, not because the fight was over, but because it had finally begun on her terms. As the lights flickered, she looked toward the back, where Andre was already posting the first clip from the church to every platform he could find. The caption read, We saw it, we won't forget it. And beneath that, a question for whoever was still watching. If truth knocks on your door tonight, will you open it or pretend you don't hear it? The rain came without warning. By dusk, the city was a blur of headlights and puddles, 1,000 reflections of a truth too bright to hide. The video from the church had already traveled farther than any sermon. In 24 hours, We Saw It, We Won't Forget It had become a rhythm. Painted on cardboard, shouted through car windows, printed on cheap t-shirts outside corner stores. Inside Maya's apartment, the air smelled like wet paper and nerves. Andre sat at the table, editing footage from the meeting, earbuds in, face lit by the screen's glow. Every few minutes, he leaned forward, cut, rewind, add subtitles. She said this with fire, he muttered, sinking the moment his aunt slammed the microphone with the beat of thunder that had rolled through the church that night. Maya stood by the window, watching droplets race down the glass. She wore her mother's old cardigan, soft, stretched, the color of faded courage. Lou was on the couch, phone pressed to her ear, voice sharp enough to slice through static. No, Clarence, we're not running it as rumor. We have documents. We have a witness. We have a damned conscience. Pause. Then run something else, but I'm not pulling it. She ended the call, sighed, and rubbed her temple. They're spooked. My contact at the Ledger says the police unions is leaning on editors. Nobody wants to be the first paper sued. They're not scared of court, Maya said quietly. They're scared of proof. Lou smiled. That's why we keep copies. She nodded toward the folder Sean Miller had given them. It sat on the table like a loaded secret, sealed in plastic sleeves. Each page was a slice of rot. Altered timestamps, missing body cam logs, internal memos stamped confidential, blue wall initiative. Andre glanced up. Shouldn't we hide that somewhere? We hide it. We admit it's dangerous. We keep it here. It's evidence. Lou's eyes softened. You sound like a reporter already. A knock rattled the door. All three froze. Lou gestured for Andre to mute the laptop. Maya's pulse jumped once hard, then steadied. She peered through the peephole. Nothing but a shadow shifting in the hallway light. Maybe Freddie,
Andre whispered. No, she said. He texts first. Another knock, slower this time, deliberate. Lou stood, slid a small recorder from her pocket and clicked it on, just in case. Maya opened the door a crack. A man in a gray windbreaker stood there, drenched, hands raised halfway like he was afraid of his own body. Miss Lewis, he asked, I think they're watching me. It was Sean. His eyes were wild, bloodshot. He stepped inside before she could speak, water dripping from his sleeves onto the floor. They came to my apartment. 2 unmarked cars. Said they were internal affairs, but he stopped to breathe. They weren't. Lou closed the door behind him, locking it twice. What did they want? My laptop, my phone. Said I had compromised an ongoing investigation. He swallowed hard. When I refused, one of them said, "The blue wall doesn't crumble. It buries." Andre looked from Maya to Lou. "We gotta leave. Go to the press right now." "We can't," Lou said. "If they think we're running, they'll follow." Maya turned to Sean. "Did they see you come here?" I don't know. I switched buses twice, but there was a black van parked outside your block. The same one that's been tailing me since noon." Andre moved to the window and peeked through the blinds. His voice went thin. "You mean that one?" Across the street, under the street lamp, a dark van idled, rain streaking its windshield. No plates, no movement. Lou cursed her breath under her breath. "They're not subtle anymore." Sean rubbed his face, trembling. "I shouldn't have come." "No," Maya said. "You did right. You just brought the truth to the only place it's safe." Andre shot her a look. "Safe? You sure about that?" "Safe enough to stand," she said. Lou paced. "We need a plan. If they break in, we're outnumbered." Maya nodded slowly, thinking. "They expect fear. Let's give them something they don't expect." She grabbed her coat, slipped the folder into a waterproof envelope, and handed it to Andre. "Take this to Pastor Raymond. He'll hide it in the church safe." "I'm not leaving you." "Do as I say," she said firmly. "You're the only one who could walk past them without raising suspicion." Andre hesitated, jaw tight. Then he shoved the envelope under his hoodie, nodded once, and slipped out the back stairwell. Lou watched him go. "You just sent your nephew into the rain." "He's been walking through storms his whole life," Maya replied. The apartment dimmed as a power surge flickered the lights. Sean jumped. "They're cutting power." "No," Lou said. "They're cutting time, making us sweat." The van's headlights turned off. Silence pressed in, heavy as humidity. Maya sat down, exhaled. "Sean, tell me everything. Who runs Blue Wall?" He hesitated, then whispered, "Deputy Chief Crane." Lou's head snapped up. "Crane? The same Crane who trained Hollis?" "Yes. He's the architect. Created an internal task force to maintain integrity. Really, it's to erase misconduct. Every file, every clip, they have copies on private server labeled Sentinel. They say it protects the department. It protects them." Lou scribbled fast. "Sentinel, got it." Maya frowned deeply. "Then that's where the truth dies." "Unless we get to it first," Lou said. Sean looked horrified. "You can't. It's secure." "So was the Berlin Wall," Lou muttered. A loud bang hit the door. 3 heavy knocks this time, shaking the frame. Sean flinched. "They found me." Lou whispered, "Stay quiet." Another knock. Then a voice to the hood, flat, made of official.
"Open up! City Police!" Maya exchanged a glance with Lou. "Ask for a warrant," Lou mouthed. "Show me a warrant," Maya called. Silence. Then, "We just want to talk." Lou shook her head, scribbling "stall" on her notebook. Maya's voice hardened. "Come back in the morning." No answer. Then the hallway light went dark. Sean's breathing turned shallow. "They're cutting the breakers." Lou pulled out her phone, dialing Pastor Raymond. "Come on, pick up!" Static. No signal. "Cell jammers," she whispered. Maya stood, steady. They won't break down that door with cameras around. But when she looked out the window, Her stomach dropped. The street was empty. No neighbors, no cars, no light. Every street lamp had gone out. Lou's voice was a thread. They turned off the block. The first impact came like thunder. The door shuddered under a hit. Once, twice. Sean stumbled back, grabbing a chair like it could stop a storm. Maya's heartbeat slowed. Strangely calm. "When I say run, head for the stairwell," she whispered. Lou frowned. "Run where?" "Toward the noise," she said. "They expect retreat." The door splintered. A gloved hand reached through the crack, searching for the lock. Maya grabbed a pan from the stove and slammed it down, crushing fingers. A muffled curse erupted outside. The hand vanished. She turned to Sean. "Now!" They bolted down the hallway, Lou clutching her recorder, Sean panting behind. The emergency exit door groaned as they burst into the alley. Rain hammered down like applause for chaos. Halfway to the street, headlights flared. The van. Its doors opened. Two men stepped out, both in dark coats, both carrying nothing that looked like restraint and everything that smelled like threat. Lou hissed, "Back!" But before the men could move closer, tires screeched from the opposite end of the alley. A second vehicle, a rusted pickup, slid to a stop, blocking the path. The driver's window rolled down. "Y'all need a ride or a miracle?" Freddie King grinned, rain dripping off his baseball cap. "I got both." "Gold!" Maya yelled. They piled in, slamming the doors, just as one of the men shouted, "Stop them!" Freddie hit the gas, tires spinning, water like gunfire. The van lurched behind them, giving chase. Rain turned the world into streaks of gray and blue. "Where's Andre?" Freddie shouted over the roar. "Safe," Maya said, clutching the seat. "I hope." Lou looked out the window, watching the van's lights blur in the distance. "They won't stop." "No," Maya said, "but neither will we." Freddie turned a corner, the engine howling. "Where to?" "The station," Lou said. "Public radio. We go live." Sean looked terrified. "They'll kill us." Lou's eyes hardened. "Then let the whole city hear it happen." Maya turned to him, voice low but steady. "You came this far, Sean. You want to die a ghost or a witness?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The van's lights grew smaller in the rear mirror, swallowed by rain. For the first time all night, Maya smiled, a small, dangerous curve of defiance. "Let them chase," she murmured. "Truth doesn't hide, it hunts." And as thunder rolled again somewhere, in the distance, the faint wail of sirens began to echo. Not for her, not for them, but for the city that had finally woken up. The radio station looked smaller than courage should. A cracked sign that once read Southside Public Radio hung crooked above the door, one bulb flickering like a pulse. Inside, the air hummed with dust, coffee, and the ghosts of better funding. The overnight DJ, a sleepy college kid named Theo, nearly dropped his donut when they four of them burst to the door, soaked, panting, eyes wide with something between fear and purpose. Lou slammed the door shut and flipped the lock. "We're live tonight. Emergency segment." Theo blinked. Miss Hart, we don't do live segments after midnight. We run replays." "Not tonight," she said, shaking the rain from her coat. "Tonight we replay history." He hesitated, but when he saw the look in her eyes, the kind that didn't ask, only warned, he nodded, shuffled to the control board, and flipped the switches. The on-air light glowed red. Maya stood in the booth, soaked to the bone, gripping the edge of the desk. Her hair clung to her face like thin ink lines. "What if nobody's listening?" she whispered. Lou adjusted her headset. "Then we'll wake them." Freddie dropped into a chair, wheezing. "You all got any towels in this place, or just caffeine and regret?" Theo handed him a napkin. Freddie looked at it, unimpressed. "Guess that's a no." Sean Miller sat near the wall, eyes darting between the window and the blinking equipment. He hadn't stopped trembling since they escaped. The van hadn't followed. Not that they'd noticed, but he couldn't shake the feeling of headlights behind every corner. Lou motioned to Theo. "Patch me in. I'll open." Static filled the air, then her voice cut through it, firm and low. "Southside listeners, this is Lucille Hart. I'm not supposed to be here tonight. Neither is the woman sitting beside me.
But life doesn't wait for permission. If you've been following the story of Maya Lewis, the woman stopped by police on Jefferson Street, you already know what fear looks like. Tonight, you're going to learn what truth sounds like. Theo's eyes widened. You're really doing this? Oh, baby, we're past doing. We're undoing. She motioned to Maya, who hesitated before pulling the mic closer. Her voice was rough but steady. My name is Maya Lewis. You've seen the video. Maybe you've argued about it at work. Maybe you've scrolled past it with a sigh. But what you didn't see is what came next. They came after the truth. Lou passed her a small nod of encouragement. There's something inside the police department called the Blue Wall Initiative. They say it's about integrity, but it's about control. It's about burying what doesn't fit the story. And tonight, I have proof. Sean swallowed. She's not lying. Luke clicked the mic toward him. Tell them, Officer Miller. He froze. The red light glowed. His reflection in the glass looked older than 28. My name is Sean Miller. I was part of the unit that trained under Deputy Chief Crane. I've seen reports changed, videos erased, careers destroyed just to keep a badge clean. Hollis wasn't a mistake. He was a pattern. Maya leaned forward. Tell them about Sentinel. He exhaled, shaking. They keep a shadow archive, files on internal affairs, complaints, anything that could embarrass the department. It's off-network, untraceable. They call it Sentinel. And He hesitated, fear trembling in his throat. Lou's voice softened. Say it, son. You're already halfway free. I copied part of it, he said finally. Emails, timestamps, deleted reports. It's not everything, but enough to show how deep it goes. Pretty let out a low whistle. Damn. Fia leaned into the mic. Folks, what you're hearing isn't a movie. It's happening right here, right now, in your city. Lou nodded to Maya. Close strong. Maya looked straight into the mic, voice calm as a sermon. I'm not asking for revenge. I'm asking for eyes. If you can hear my voice, don't look away. Tomorrow morning, you'll see what they've hidden. And when you do, ask yourself what silence costs. She pressed the stop button. Static filled the room again. Theo turned from the board. That's it? You're gonna drop it like that? Lou smiled faintly. The quiet after a truth bomb is the loudest sound there is. They sat there, breathing the weight of what they had done. Outside, the rain slowed, replaced by the hum of early traffic and far-off sirens. Then the power flickered. Once. Twice. Theo frowned. That's weird. We're on backup grid. Lou's hand tightened on the pen. No, they're listening. Sean stood. We have to go. If they tracked my signal. Before he could finish, headlights splashed across the window. Not one. 3. Freddy cursed. They found us again. Lou grabbed the recorder and the flash drive from Theo's desk. We take the audio. Everything else can burn. Theo looked terrified. You're not leaving me here, are you? Not a chance, baby. Lou patted his shoulder. You're part of history now. They raced down the narrow hallway toward the back door. Sean flung it open and froze. 2 men stood at the alley entrance. Same dark coats, no badges. Maya felt her heart drop, but then, behind them, another engine revved. A loudspeaker crackled. This is Sergeant Price with the city precinct. Step away from the building. The 2 men turned, startled. For a second, confusion split the air. One of them reached for his coat, but the squad car's floodlights flared, pinning them in white. Price stepped out, uniformed, tall, his voice commanding. Hands up, gentlemen.
The men hesitated, then bolted down the alley. Price looked at Maya. You all right? Lou narrowed her eyes. You want a Cranes? He shook his head. Not anymore. You can thank your broadcast. The whole department's awake, and half of us are asking questions we weren't supposed to. Sean stepped forward. You believed us?
I believe my own damn eyes, Price said. Now come on, you need to move before the wrong people get here. They climbed into his cruiser, dripping, breathless. As he sped through the streets, the city outside began to stir. First one light, then another. People waking, phones pinging, cars honking. The story was spreading like fire through dry grass. Lou looked out the window, voice low. It's too big to stop now. Maya leaned back, watching the sunrise cut through the clouds. Good, she whispered. Let them see it in daylight. Price turned the radio up. The announcer's voice, shaky but resolute, filled the car. We're receiving reports of a developing story involving the Blue Wall Initiative. Documents have been leaked. Community members are calling for an emergency council hearing. Sean exhaled, tears he hadn't noticed sliding down his face. Freddie chuckled softly. Guess the city finally tuned in. Lou leaned forward. This is just the beginning. The truth's awake, but she's still stretching. Maya smiled faintly, her voice barely above a whisper. Then let's make sure she never goes back to sleep. The cruiser rolled on, sirens rising in the distance, not warning, but answering. By sunrise, the city was no longer quiet. It was trembling. Sirens, chants, phones buzzing like locusts. Somewhere in that noise, truth had caught flame. The broadcast had gone viral overnight. Snippets of Maya's voice poured through social media like gasoline. Ask yourself what silence costs. Her words were replayed on morning shows, echoed in car radios, whispered in break rooms. And in one high-rise office downtown, Deputy Chief Marcus Crane stood at a window, watching it all burn. He didn't move, didn't blink. His reflection looked calm, but his hands on the desk told the truth. Fingers twitching, veins tight. Behind him, a younger officer spoke nervously. Sir, the department's phones haven't stopped ringing. Reporters, councilmen, activists, everyone wants a statement. Crane exhaled through his nose. And they'll get one. A controlled one. Yes, sir, but find Hollis now. The officer hesitated. He hasn't reported in. His badge pinged near the river last night, then nothing. Crane turned slowly, then start searching the water. He walked to his shelf, pulled out a plain black binder, embossed only with one word, Sentinel. He flipped it open. There were faces, dozens, all officers who'd been handled, all civilians who'd been resolved. Each one followed by a date, a short report, and a red stamp, closed. But not this time. This time, someone had opened the coffin from the inside. Across town, Maya woke on Pastor Raymond's couch. The church smelled of coffee, floor polish, and a storm waiting to happen. Andre sat nearby, scrolling through his phone, eyes wide. You're trending everywhere, he said quietly. Even Spanish news picked it up. La mujer que rompió el silencio. What does that mean? Maya rubbed her eyes. The woman who broke the silence. She smiled faintly. Guess it sounds prettier in Spanish. Lou burst into the room, phone pressed to her ear. It's happening. The city council called an emergency hearing for noon. They're demanding Crane testify. We did it. Freddie walked in behind her, carrying a tray of biscuits. Did it? Girl, we just kicked the door down. Now we gotta survive what's behind it. Andre looked up. People outside already lining up. Reporters, cops, church folks, even the news vans are blocking the street. Pastor Raymond entered, adjusting his tie. Let them wait. The Lord says truth walks on its own time, though she's usually late enough to make you sweat. Maya chuckled, but her smile faded when she looked out the window. The crowd outside was loud, but behind the chants there was something else. Tension. 2 patrol cars were parked across the street. Officers stood beside them, hands resting on holsters. Lou noticed it too. They're not guarding, they're watching. Watching who? Freddie asked. All of us, she said. But mid-morning, the church steps looked like a protest in a prayer circle collided. Signs rose like teeth. No more blue walls. Justice has an aim. We saw it. Camera crews packed the sidewalk. Drones hummed overhead. And Maya, standing at the top of the steps, felt smaller than she'd ever felt, but taller too. A reporter shoved a mic toward her. Ms. Lewis, how do you feel knowing your broadcast exposed corruption inside the department? She looked straight at the camera. I don't feel powerful. I feel tired. But sometimes tired people start the loudest revolutions. The reporter blinked, stunned, and then nodded as the crowd cheered. Lou leaned close, whispering, "Perfect. That'll make the 6 o'clock lead." Maya smiled. "I wasn't performing, Lou." "I know. That's why it worked." Suddenly, Andre's phone buzzed. He frowned. "Auntie, you need to see this." He handed it to her. On the screen, a live feed. Deputy Chief Crane stepping up to a podium, cameras flashing like gunfire. "My department," he began, "has been the victim of a smear campaign built on false information and doctored evidence. We stand by our officers. We do not tolerate corruption, nor do we tolerate lies." Maya felt her stomach twist. He continued, "And for those involved in stealing and leaking classified data, warrants have already been issued." Maya froze. "What?" Sean's name appeared on the screen. Officer Sean Miller, suspended under federal investigation. Andre's voice cracked. "They're coming for him." Lou's phone rang. It was Sean. She put it on speaker. "Lou!" His voice came, breathless, panicked. "They're at my place. Black SUVs. I'm hiding in the laundry room. They took my laptop. What do I do?" Lou's eyes darted to Maya. "Get out of there. Find people. Public space. Anywhere with cameras." "I can't. They're inside." The line went dead. For a second, the whole church went silent, as if even the walls were holding their breath. "What if they—" "Don't say it," Maya snapped. Her hands shook, but her voice didn't. "He risked everything for this. We can't let them erase him, too." Lou took a step back, thinking fast. Crane's speech won't hold long. If the Sentinel files are real, there's more proof. Sean said it was off-network, but if he accessed it once, we can again. "You mean hack them?" "I mean publish what they tried to bury. Every damn file." "And how do we do that without getting arrested?" Freddie asked. Lou looked at Andre. "You find someone who knows the internet better than fear." "Me?" "You. You've been cutting videos, uploading streams, dodging takedowns for years. You're already one step away from a hacker." He hesitated. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." Maya squeezed his shoulder. "Baby, you sure about this?" He took a deep breath. "If they're gonna chase us, I'd rather make it worth the run." Upstairs, in the church office, Andre set up his laptop. Rain tapped the stained glass window, light filtering through in shards of red and gold. Lou stood behind him, dictating commands. Freddie paced, chewing his nails. Maya prayed quietly in the corner. Andre's fingers flew across the keyboard. "Okay, found the IP trace Sean mentioned. It's masked through 3 firewalls, but one of them is city-owned." "Translation?" Freddie asked. "It's not in the cloud. It's in the building," Andre said. Lou leaned closer. "City Hall?" He nodded. "Basement server." Lou whistled. "The devil doesn't hide in shadows anymore. He rents an office downtown." Andre hit enter. The screen filled with lines of code. Then, access granted. A flood of files appeared. Case logs, deleted footage, scanned memos, internal chat logs between officers. Every one of them stamped with that same word, Sentinel. "Got it," he said.
Lou's voice trembled with disbelief. Good Lord! Maya stepped forward. "Send it. All of it." Andre hesitated. "Once I do, we can't take it back. Then make it count." He clicked Upload. Progress bar 1%, 5%, 12%. Outside, the chant from the crowd grew louder. The city was listening. 30%, 45%, 60%. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Freddie shouted, "They're cutting power again!" Lou's voice was sharp. "Keep it running!" Andre gritted his teeth. Almost there. 78%, 89%, 94%. The power went out completely. Darkness swallowed the room. A single beam of sunlight filtered through the stained glass, landing on Maya's face. For a moment, she thought it was over. Then she heard it. Bing! The laptop beeped once, glowing faintly. On screen, one message appeared. Upload complete. Andre exhaled, shaking. "It's done." Lou pressed her hand to her chest. "You just made history, kid." Maya whispered, "No, he just made it honest." Outside, the church bells began to ring. Not for Sunday, but for something older. Something holy in its defiance. And as the first morning light spilled over the crowd, Maya stepped outside.
lifted her head, and saw what truth looked like when it refused to die. Across every screen in the city, the files began to appear. Names, footage, voices once erased. The blue wall had cracked. And somewhere, deep in his office, Marcus Crane watched his empire collapse 1 pixel at a time. By noon, the whole city had become a heartbeat. Screens flickered, radios stuttered, phones chimed like sirens. Every corner cafe, every subway car, every living room in the projects, all watching the same thing, the fall of the blue wall. Emails, body cam footage, voice memos, all public, and every one of them pointed straight up the chain of command to one man, Deputy Chief Marcus Crane. At City Hall, chaos looked expensive. Reporters crowded marble staircases, cameras battled for power outlets, and every official face wore the same thing, panic disguised as professionalism. Crane stood at the podium, tight, treat enough to strangle composure. Flashes strobed across his face as he read from a prepared statement. These files are forgeries, fabricated to damage the integrity of this department. A voice from the crowd cut through. Then why do the timestamps match your personal login? Crane froze. Another reporter shouted, "Why were the deleted complaints against Officer Hollis marked approved by Crane?" He tried to speak, but his throat refused him. The flashbulbs became lightning. Then, through the noise, a familiar voice rang out, "You can stop pretending now, Marcus." Everyone turned. Maya Lewis stood at the back of the chamber, flanked by Lou Hart, Andre, Freddie, and Pastor Raymond. She wore no makeup, no suit, no armor, just the same calm she'd worn the day a gun was pointed at her. Crane's jaw tightened. "You don't belong here." "Neither did Justice," she said, stepping forward. Reporters parted like the sea. Every camera turned to her. She stopped just short of the podium. "You called me a liar on television, said I wanted attention, so here I am, attention in full color." The crowd murmured. Lou's camera rolled quietly in her hand. Crane glared. "You think leaking stolen files make you a hero?" "No," Maya said. "It makes me honest. Something you should try." Crane's fists slammed the podium. "You don't know what it takes to run a department. The things I've seen, the things you buried," she interrupted. For the first time, his mask cracked. Sweat rolled down his temple. "You built a system to hide fear," Maya continued. "And you called it protection. But you weren't protecting people, Marcus. You were protecting power." Gasps rippled through the hall. Cameras zoomed in. Lou leaned toward Andre and whispered, "Get every second of this." Crane's voice dropped to a low growl. "You think you can stand here and destroy me?" Maya met his gaze. "No, Marcus, you destroyed yourself the moment you chose silence over truth." At the very same moment, someone pushed through the side door, drenched, limping, clutching his phone. "Son?" Andre gasped. It was Sean Miller, bruised but alive. His face was cut, his eyes wild. The room erupted in whispers. He raised his phone and shouted, "You want proof? Here's your proof." He held up a recording, Crane's voice unmistakable. "Make the report disappear. Hollis didn't do anything we all do. If that woman talks, make her disappear too." The audio echoed through the hall, through every microphone, every live broadcast. Crane lunged forward. "That's Dockard. That's not—" "Your voice," Lou said, holding her phone up, "from your office line time-stamped yesterday." He looked around. No escape. Cameras everywhere, eyes everywhere. Reporters swarmed, microphones shouting questions like gunfire. "Did you order a cover-up? Did you threaten Maya Lewis? Are you resigning?" Crane stumbled back, pale. "This isn't over." "No," Maya said. "It's finally starting." Security approached him, not to escort him to safety, but to take him into custody. The irony burned bright, the same badge that once shielded him, now pressed against his wrist in the steel. As they led him away, Crane turned once more towards Maya. "You'll regret this." She shook her head. "No, Marcus, I've been regretting silence my whole life. Today's just peace." Outside City Hall, the crowd exploded. Cheers, chants, tears, strangers hugging, horns blaring. The phrase, "We saw it, we won't forget it," now covered every sign, every shirt, every window. Lou handed Maya a tissue. "Smile, girl, you just became the face of a movement." Maya dabbed at her eyes. "I didn't want to be a movement. I just wanted a normal day that didn't end in fear." Lou smiled. Sometimes that's how movements start, with someone who's tired of surviving. Andre handed her his phone. "The city's watching live. You want to say something?" Maya hesitated, then nodded. He held the camera steady as she stepped up onto the courthouse steps. Her voice cut through the noise like sunlight after a storm. "Every city has walls," she said. "Some made of bricks, some of silence. But walls don't fall because one person yells. They fall when everyone pushes." The crowd grew quiet, leaning in. "So I'll ask you, all of you, if you saw something broken today in your city, in your life, are you going to wait for someone else to fix it? Or are you going to start pushing?" A wave of applause rolled through the plaza like thunder out of hope. Andre lowered the phone, whispering, "That line's gonna live forever." Maya looked at him, smiling through tears. "I hope not. I hope one day no one needs it." Inside City Hall, as officers led Crane away, Sean sat on a bench, exhausted. Lou joined him. "You did good, son," she said softly. He laughed weakly. "I almost died for this." She nodded. "That's how you know it mattered?" He leaned back, eyes close. "Think they'll fix it now?" Look towards the crowd outside. "No, but now they can't pretend it's not broken." That night, the city didn't sleep. Fireworks cracked in the distance, some in celebration, some in anger. But for once, fear and hope shared the same skyline. Maya stood under a balcony, Andre beside her. The street below was alive with music, honking cars, and people chanting her name. She turned to Andre. "You ever think one day we'd see this?" Andre shook his head. "No, but I always hoped I would." She smiled faintly. "Then maybe hope's been doing more work than we thought." He grinned. "You're gonna keep fighting?" She took a long breath, eyes on the glowing city. "I think I'll rest first. Then maybe teach people how to push without breaking." Lou called from the couch out inside, voice loud over the news broadcast. "They're calling it the day the wall fell. You hear that?" Maya smiled. "Yeah, but the truth didn't fall. It just stood up." The morning after the fall felt unreal, like the city had forgotten how to breathe normally. Helicopters still hovered over downtown. News anchors talked in slow, careful tones, trying to sound calm while the world underneath them was shifting. Hashtags burned across every screen, and for once, they weren't just names of the dead.
Hashtag Maya Lewis. Hashtag Blue Wall Exposed. Hashtag Truth Woke First. The city was finally awake. But awakening always comes with shaking. Maya sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cold mug of coffee. The apartment smelled faintly of smoke from the fireworks that had lit up the skyline all night. Andre was asleep on the couch, phone still glowing in his hand. He'd fallen asleep replying to messages. Strangers, activists, journalists, teachers, all thanking him, all asking what's next. Lou stood by the window, eyes scanning the headlines through her reading glasses. "City Council suspends top police officials," she read aloud. "Mayor promises reform task force." She snorted softly. "Promises are like raindrops. Look pretty till they hit the ground." Maya smiled tiredly. "You sound like my mother." "Good," Lou said. "Means she was right." Freddie entered, holding a box of pastries and looking like a man who'd seen too much history and not enough sleep. "I brought donuts, celebration fuel, or stress food. Depends which headline you read." He set the box down and switched on the TV. The image filled the room. A clean-shaven anchor with perfect hair announcing,
Deputy Chief Marcus Crane was formally charged this morning with obstruction of justice, witness tampering, and conspiracy. Sources say more indictments may follow.
Andre stirred awake, mungling, "We really did it." Maya whispered, "We just started it." 2 hours later, a black sedan pulled up outside the church. Pastor Raymond was already there, talking with volunteers sorting donated clothes. The driver stepped out, a woman in a dark suit, short curls, no smile. "Ms. Lewis?" she asked. Maya stepped forward cautiously. "That depends who's asking." The woman flipped open her badge. "Special Agent Rivera, Department of Justice." Lou stepped beside Maya instantly. "She's not saying another word without counsel." Rivera smiled faintly. "Relax, Miss Hart. We're not here to prosecute her. We're here to protect her." "Protect me?" Maya asked. The agent nodded. "You've made enemies, Ms. Lewis. There are still officers under Crane's command who aren't happy the wall came down. We've received credible threats." Andre froze. "What kind of threats?" Rivera's tone didn't change. "The kind that make people disappear before trials." Maya looked her in the eye. "You telling me to hide?" "I'm asking you to stay alive, just until the indictments are unsealed." Lou crossed her arms. "And where exactly do you plan to keep her? A safe house with fluorescent lights and bad coffee?" Rivera smiled, dry as dust. "You've been in one before, haven't you?" Lou didn't answer. Maya looked around. The volunteers, the church, the walls that had heard every prayer of the past week. "If I leave now," she said quietly, "people will think I'm running." Rivera shook her head. "No, Ms. Lewis. They'll know you're preparing for the long fight." That night, they drove out of the city. The skyline shrank in the rearview mirror, glowing like a wounded crown. Andre filmed short clips of the drive. Raindrops on glass, passing headlights, Lou humming an old gospel tune low under her breath. "Feels strange," Andre said, "like we're leaving our own story behind." Maya looked out the window. "We're not leaving it. We're giving it room to grow." Freddie, who had insisted on driving, chuckled. "Girl, you sound like a preacher." "Maybe I've been hanging around too many," she said softly. Rivera's voice came from the passenger seat. "You've done more good in 1 week than most people do in a lifetime. But good work makes bad people nervous." Maya nodded. "Then they can stay nervous." The safe house was an old farmhouse an hour outside the city. White paint peeling, porch light flickering. It looked like the kind of place time had forgotten. But inside it was wired. Security cameras, bulletproof windows, reinforced locks. Rivera gave a brief tour, then handed Maya a phone. "Secure line, no social media, no interviews, not until this is over." Maya nodded. "How long?" "Until the judge says the wall is officially down. Could be weeks." "Weeks of bad coffee and hiding from history." "History doesn't hide," Maya said. "It just waits to see who's still standing." Rivera smiled faintly. "You'll fit right in." The first few days passed quietly. Maya and Andre cleaned the porch. Lou cooked breakfast that somehow tasted like rebellion. And Freddie turned an old shed into what he called the Freedom Garage, a space full of half-broken radios and one working generator. Every evening, Maya sat on the porch with a notebook, writing letters she never sent. Letters to Sean, to the people who called her a liar, to her younger self. In one letter, she wrote, "I used to think truth was a spotlight, something bright, loud, and dangerous. But now I know it's a seed. You plant it in the dark and you wait. And if you're lucky, it grows in the places they never thought to look." One night, while the others slept, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Nice job with Crane. You think this ends with him? You only cracked the first brick." Maya stared at that for a long time, the glow of the screen cold against her face, and she smiled faintly, typed back, Good. I still have hands. Back in the city, the ripple became a wave. More officers came forward. More documents surfaced. A federal task force formed to investigate corruption across multiple states. The blue wall had never been just one wall. It was a maze. And now, piece by piece, people were finding their way out. Lou received calls from journalists in New York, Chicago, even London. She turned most of them down. She doesn't need fame, she told them. She needs a fair world to walk through. Andre uploaded one final video. Clips of protests, testimonies, and Maya's speech at City Hall. Over it, he laid her voice from the original broadcast. Ask yourself what silence costs. Within hours, it hit 1 million views. 2 weeks later, Agent Rivera returned. The trials are moving forward, she said. Crane pleaded not guilty, but the evidence is airtight. You'll be called as a witness soon. Maya nodded. Good, maybe I'll finally sleep after that. Don't count on it, Lou muttered. Truth doesn't let people sleep easy. It just lets them sleep honest. Andre smiled. That should be on a t-shirt. Freddie added, put me down for 2. That night, they sat together on the porch. Coffee, laughter, a cool wind rustling through the cornfields. The air no longer smelled of fear. It smelled like something cleaner. Maya looked up at the sky. You ever notice, she said softly, how quiet it gets when justice starts to heal? Lou nodded. That's the sound of a wound closing. Andre leaned back. Think it'll last? Maya smiled. Only if people keep listening. In the distance, the city lights flickered, not as warning, but as witness. The wall had fallen, but the echoes still carried, reminding everyone that peace, like truth, always comes with a price. The courthouse smelled like paper, coffee, and nerves. Reporters crowded every hallway, their whispers buzzing like flies around a wound. Security guards flanked every entrance, and on the 5th floor, behind the heavy oak doors, the trial of State versus Marcus Crane was about to begin. Maya Lewis sat at the witness table, her palms slicked against the polished wood. Andre sat a few rows behind her, camera in hand, though he promised not to film inside. Lou Hart sat beside him, a steady presence in a sea of flashbulbs and tension. The judge entered. Everyone rose. The air shifted from chaos to ceremony. Court is now in session, the bailiff said. Crane entered from the opposite side, handcuffed, suit pressed too neatly for a man drowning. His eyes found Maya instantly. He smirked, but it was a broken kind of smirk, brittle, rehearsed, hollow. Maya didn't look away. The prosecutor, a tall woman with silver hair, named Denise Caldwell, began with precision. Deputy Chief Crane, you were the architect of a program known internally as the Blue Wall Initiative, correct?
Crane's lawyer objected. Allegedly known as such. The judge overruled. Answer the question. Crane's jaw flexed. It was an informal system of internal review. Caldwell raised an eyebrow. Internal review that deleted hundreds of misconduct reports? He didn't answer. Caldwell clicked a remote. The projector lit up with screenshots, documents, emails, timestamps. Each one was like a nail being driven into the coffin of his reputation. She turned to the jury. These are official memos signed by the defendant himself, directing subordinates to adjust narrative timing, suppress community interference, and restructure evidence flow. You'll see those phrases over and over. They're bureaucratic poetry for bury the truth. Gasps whispered through the room. Crane's lawyer jumped up. Objection, Your Honor. Inflammatory language. Overruled, the judge said. Proceed. Then it was Maya's turn. The bailiff swore her in. Her voice was steady when she said, I do. But her heart was running marathons in silence. Caldwell approached. Miss Lewis, you became known to the public after an encounter with Officer Michael Hollis. Can you tell the court what happened that day? Maya took a breath. He pointed a gun at me for picking up groceries. A ripple of shock passed through the room. She continued, voice firm. He didn't see a woman.
He saw a threat that looked like me. Caldwell nodded, and Deputy Chief Crane later approved Hollis's report? Yes. And what did that report say? That I resisted arrest, that I reached for something in my bag. Was that true? No, Maya said quietly. What I reached for was a receipt. A murmur moved through the courtroom. Even the court stenographer looked up for a second. Caldwell let the silence sit just long enough before asking, Miss Lewis, what did you feel in that moment? Maya met her eyes. I felt small, and then I got angry for ever thinking that was the same as safe. Caldwell smiled faintly. Thank you. She turned. No further questions. The defense attorney rose. Slick hair, smug tone, the kind of man who liked his own echo. Miss Lewis, you've received a lot of attention since this incident, haven't you? I suppose so. You have social media accounts, interviews, a book deal even. Maya frowned. I don't have a book deal. He's smart. Not yet. He paced. You've become the face of a movement. People chant your name. That must feel powerful. She leaned forward. No, sir. It feels heavy. The lawyer's smile twitched. You've been portrayed as a hero, but heroes don't break the law, do they? You assisted in the illegal release of classified materials, correct? Caldwell stood. Objection! The judge raised a hand. Overruled. Let her answer. Maya looked straight at Crane. If telling the truth is illegal, then the law needs a witness, not a hero. The room went still. Even Crane's lawyer hesitated before moving on. He tried to press, but something in her calmness disarmed him. She wasn't defensive. She was done being afraid. Finally, he said, no further questions. As she stepped down, Crane whispered, You think this ends with me? Maya stopped. No. It ends with the idea that men like you are untouchable. His eyes flickered. You'll never change the world, Maya. She smiled faintly. I don't need to. I just need to make it honest. Hours later, the courtroom was packed for closing arguments. Caldwell's voice carried like scripture. This case isn't about one corrupt officer. It's about the wall built from fear in silence, and the people who had the courage to knock. Crane's attorney tried to counter, painted him as a misguided protector, but it was too late. The jury's eyes said what words wouldn't. After 2 hours of deliberation, they returned. The foreman stood. We, the jury, find the defendant, Marcus Crane, guilty on all counts. A sound rippled through the room. Gasps, cries, applause, before the judge's gavel restored order. Crane slumped in his chair, disbelief written across his face like a sentence he couldn't read. Lou squeezed Maya's shoulder. You did it. Maya shook her head. We did it. Outside, the courthouse steps were packed again, not with chaos but with calm, people holding candles instead of signs. It wasn't protest anymore. It was reflection. Andre filmed as Maya stepped to the microphone for the last time. I used to think justice was a lightning strike. Quick, loud, beautiful. But it's not. It's rain. Slow, steady, washing what was dirty until you can finally see what's underneath. She looked out at the faces, tired, proud, alive. This isn't my victory. It's a reminder. You can't build peace on fear. You can't heal silence with silence. The crowd applauded, not wildly, but with reverence. Pastor Raymond whispered, That'll preach. Lou smiled. That is preaching. Later that night at the church, Maya lit a candle beside the door, one for every name the blue walnut swallowed. Sean was there too, arm still in a sling, but standing taller. They're calling this the biggest internal cleanup in 50 years. Feels weird being part of history. Maya smiled gently. History's just tomorrow remembering who didn't give up. He nodded. You know, I think Hollis tried to reach out from a rehab center. Said he wants to talk. Maya's expression softened. Then maybe I'll listen. Not to forgive him, just to understand where fear begins. Sean nodded. That's braver than anything I did. No, she said. You started the crack. I just followed the light through. That night she sat on the church steps, wind curling to the trees. Andre joined her, camera resting on his knee. You think it's really over? He asked. She smiled at the stars. Justice isn't an ending, baby. It's a sound. You just got to keep it echoing. They sat in the silence a moment, listening to the city breathe. Somewhere in the distance, a child laughed, and for the first time in a long time, that sound didn't feel like a miracle. It felt like normal. The night the verdict was announced, the rain fell soft and steady. Not angry, not heavy, just enough to rinse the streets like the city was trying to wash its face after crying too long. Inside her small apartment, Maya Lewis sat by the window with a blanket draped around her shoulders. The same window where, months ago, she had watched the van idle and wondered if fear would ever leave her block. Now all she saw was reflection. Hers calm but older. Andre sat on the couch, editing his final video, a documentary he called The Wall That Listened. Each clip played like memory. The church, the crowd, the radio broadcast, Crane's trial, and finally, that look on her face when the word guilty hit the air. Lou was on the balcony smoking a cigarette she didn't even inhale. She'd quit years ago, but she said it helped her think. One drag for every headline, she used to say. Freddie was fixing a loose leg on the kitchen table, humming an old blues song. Pastor Ringden stopped by earlier with a bottle of grape soda and a promise. Tomorrow, we plant trees out front, something that lasts longer than applause. Now the apartment was quiet. Peaceful. Almost too peaceful. Play it again, Maya said softly. Andre hit the spacebar. Her voice filled the room from the video, the speech at the courthouse. Justice isn't a lightning strike. It's rain. Slow, steady, washing what was dirty until you can finally see what's underneath. He looked up at her. You sure you want to release it tomorrow? It's raw. No music, no cuts. She smiled. Then it's real. Leave it that way. Lou turned from the balcony. You realize once you post up, there's no going back. You'll be the woman they quote in classrooms and argue about in talk shows. I don't care who quotes me. I just want them to listen before they talk. Freddie grinned. Girl, you sound like Dr. King with an attitude. Andre laughed. Auntie King, coming to his training platforms everywhere. For a moment, the room filled with laughter, the kind that healed instead of hid pain. Later that night, when everyone had gone, Maya stayed awake. The rain had stopped. The city lay slicker to the blinds. She stood up, walked to her desk, and pulled out the same notebook she'd used in the safe house. A page waited. Blank. Patient.
She began to write. People think the story ends with justice, but it doesn't. Justice is just the pause between wrong and right, the breath before you decide who you'll be now that you're free. Freedom, I'm learning, isn't a gift, it's maintenance. You have to keep it clean, keep it honest, keep it alive. And sometimes it's quiet, so quiet that if you stop listening, it slips away. She paused, listening. Outside, the distant hum of traffic sounded almost like applause fading. The next morning, she walked to the corner cafe, the same one she used to avoid because cops drank their coffee there. Heads turned when she entered. Some faces smiled, some didn't, but no one looked away. The barista, a young Latina woman with tired eyes, broke into a grin. Ms. Lewis, coffee's on the house. My mama said if you ever came in here, I had to say thank you. Maya smiled. You tell your mama she raised a good woman. The girl blushed. She said the same about you. Maya sat by the window, sipping the coffee, watching the street. People were still marching somewhere, still chanting her name. But for the first time, the city felt alive, not angry. At noon, Andre posted the video. Within an hour, it had 500,000 views. Within 2, the mayor retweeted it with a simple caption. The city hears you, Maya. We will do better. Lou's phone buzzed nonstop with interview requests. She ignored most of them, forwarding the rest to community centers. She said let the right people tell it. We already had our turn. Freddie printed T-shirts that read, We pushed, and sold them for donations to families affected by police violence. He refused to keep a penny. Pastor Raymond's church filled every Sunday until people spilled out into the street, singing hymns that didn't need microphones. And Sean Miller, the man who risked everything, started teaching ethics at the police academy.
First lesson, he told every recruit, your badge is borrowed, not owned. But not everyone celebrated. Some corners of the city whispered that the blue walls still lived, just quieter now, learning new tricks. Maya knew that was true. Walls didn't die, they rebuilt. Still, when she walked down Jefferson Street, the same one where it had all begun, she noticed something different. No one looked through her anymore. A little boy on a scooter stopped and asked shyly, Ms. Maya, are you the lady who made the police be nice? She laughed. I made them remember they're supposed to be. He nodded like that made perfect sense, then rode off into the sunlight. That night, at home, Maya sat on her porch with Andre. The moonlight spilled across the street, silver and soft. You ever think, Andre said, maybe you're meant for this? She shook her head. Nobody's meant for pain, baby. We just decide what to do with it when it comes. He leaned back. So what now? Maya smiled. Now we live, loudly, kindly, and we keep the echo alive. He looked at her puzzled. The echo? She nodded toward the city skyline, glowing against the night. Every time someone speaks up because of what we did, that's the echo. Every time someone chooses to record instead of look away, that's the echo. And every time a mother sleeps easier because her son made it home, that's the echo too. Andre nodded slowly, the meaning settling deep. Then we keep it going. She smiled, proud. That's my boy. Hours later, long after Andre went to bed, Maya stayed outside a little longer. The city hummed, trains in the distance, a siren far away, rain starting again. But this time, it didn't sound like warning. It sounded like rhythm. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, let them build new walls if they must. We learned how to make echoes strong enough to shake them. Then she blew out the candle by her chair, and for the first time in years, she slept, not because she was exhausted, but because she was at peace.